Imagine waking up tomorrow with an ability you never had before, not something you practiced, not something you studied, something that simply appeared. You sit down at a piano you have never played in your life, and your hands begin to move. Or you close your eyes and see mathematics, not as numbers on a page, but as shapes, as landscapes, as something you can walk through and navigate like a city you somehow already know. Or you pick up a piece of clay and your fingers begin sculpting with a precision that takes most artists decades to develop. None of these people went to school for what they can now do. None of them practiced. Each of them had a brain injury, and each of them woke up on the other side of it as someone they had never been before. What if the greatest mystery isn't what the brain loses, but what it suddenly reveals? In 2006, a man named Derek Amato dived into the shallow end of a swimming pool at a friend's house. He hit his head on the bottom. The concussion was severe. He lost 40% of his hearing. He experienced memory problems that would last for years. And several days after the accident, he sat down at a piano keyboard he had never played. According to Amato, he found himself playing continuously for hours, producing structured music despite having no previous musical training. He went on to build a professional career as a musician. Jason Paget was a furniture salesman with no particular interest in mathematics. In 2002, he was beaten outside a karaoke bar, suffering a severe concussion and post-traumatic stress disorder. When he recovered, he began seeing the world differently, literally. Every surface, every curve, every motion appeared to him as a geometric structure. Fractals, wave functions, mathematical forms overlaid on ordinary reality. He began drawing them. With extraordinary precision, he became known for drawing remarkably detailed geometric representations inspired by mathematical concepts, including visual approximations of pi and fractal geometry. He later devoted himself to the study of mathematics and number theory. And then there is Alonzo Clemens. As a toddler, Alonzo sustained a brain injury that left him with significant cognitive impairment. He never learned to read. He struggles with basic daily tasks. But give him a handful of clay in 20 minutes, and he will produce a sculpture of an animal, any animal, with anatomical accuracy that would challenge a trained artist. He works from a single glance, sometimes from memory. His sculptures have been exhibited internationally. These are not myths, not inspirational exaggerations. They are documented cases, studied by neurologists and cognitive scientists across several decades, and they all point toward the same deeply unsettling question. Your mind is not an empty vessel waiting to be filled. It is a landscape far larger than you have ever been shown. For most of human history, we understood the brain through the lens of what it could be taught. Skills were things you learned. Abilities were things you practiced. The mind grew through education and experience. Brain damage in this framework could only mean subtraction. Remove tissue, remove function, injure a region, lose a capability. But savant syndrome, a condition in which extraordinary ability emerges following neurological injury or developmental difference, refuses to fit this model. Something else is happening, and neuroscience has been slowly, carefully building a picture of what that something might be. The human brain is not structured as a single, unified system. It is a collection of specialized networks constantly communicating, constantly negotiating. The two hemispheres, or left and right, are broadly associated with different kinds of processing. The left hemisphere is heavily involved in language, sequential reasoning, logical analysis, the organization of experience into structured narrative. The right hemisphere is generally more involved in pattern recognition, spatial processing, the perception of whole structures rather than individual parts. In most people, these systems operate in a kind of dynamic balance, each moderating and shaping the output of the other. What researchers have proposed, and this remains a leading theory rather than established fact, is that in some cases of neurological injury, this balance shifts. When damage occurs to left hemisphere structures or to the pathways that coordinate left and right communication, the right hemisphere may be partially released from inhibition. Networks that were previously constrained, filtered, quieted, moderated, become more active. And sometimes, what they reveal when the filters loosen is astonishing. Allan Snyder, a neuroscientist at the University of Sydney, has spent years developing what he calls the disinhibition hypothesis. His central proposal is that savant abilities may not be created by brain injury, they may be uncovered by it. The idea is this: your brain is constantly receiving far more information than your conscious mind can process. Every moment, millions of signals arrive from your senses: patterns, structures, mathematical relationships, auditory information, processed at levels far below awareness. Your conscious experience is not the full output of your brain. It is a highly edited summary, a reduction. The mechanisms that produce this reduction, that filter raw experience into manageable conscious perception, are sophisticated, efficient, and in most brains, extremely effective. Snyder's hypothesis is that some of the raw processing that normally never reaches consciousness, the detailed mathematical structures underlying visual experience, the precise geometric relationships in a scene, the exact statistical patterns in sound, may become accessible when inhibitory pathways are disrupted. Not because new abilities appear, because existing processing is no longer filtered away before it can be used. To test this hypothesis, Snyder's team used transcranial magnetic stimulation, a technique that temporarily suppresses neural activity in specific regions, to mimic in a controlled way the kind of inhibitory disruption seen in some savant cases. In some studies, participants showed temporary changes in performance on tasks involving detailed perception and pattern recognition. The results were preliminary, the sample sizes were small, the scientific community remains divided on the implications, but the question the research raises is one that does not easily go away. Consciousness is not the full extent of what your mind contains. It is the doorway through which only a fraction of it passes. Consider what this means. Your brain, right now, is processing information at scales and speeds your conscious experience never reports. The pattern of every face you have ever seen, the geometric structure of every surface you have walked across, the statistical regularities of every language you have ever heard. All of this is present, being processed, informing your behavior and perception in ways you will never directly observe. The extraordinary thing about savant syndrome is not that it creates abilities from nothing. The extraordinary thing is that it suggests these capacities were already operating silently in a layer of brain function that ordinary consciousness never reaches. What you are aware of may be only the smallest part of what your brain is doing. This leads to a question worth sitting with carefully. If savant abilities can emerge following brain injury, if extraordinary capacities can suddenly become accessible through disruption of inhibitory systems, does this mean that everyone has a hidden savant waiting to emerge? Neuroscience does not support this conclusion. The mechanisms are complex, the cases are rare. The relationship between inhibition, disinhibition, and the emergence of extraordinary ability is not understood well enough to make confident predictions about what any individual brain might contain. What the science does support is something more modest, and in some ways, more interesting. The brain is more active, more complex, and more capable than what conscious experience reveals. Most of what your mind does, you never see. And the capacities that become visible through deliberate practice, focused attention, and deep engagement with difficult challenges are drawing on systems of far greater sophistication than the effort required to access them would suggest. The mind is always working on more than you know it is working on. So what can a person without brain injury actually take from this? Not the promise of hidden genius, not the suggestion that there is some untapped reservoir of extraordinary ability waiting to be unlocked through the right technique or the right accident, but something more grounded and perhaps more useful. The brain responds to what you demand of it. When you direct sustained attention toward a difficult skill, when you practice deliberately, when you engage with material at the edge of your current understanding, you are not simply filling a container with new information, you are reshaping the architecture of the processing system itself. New neural pathways form. Existing ones strengthen and specialize. The quality of processing available to you in a domain changes over time in response to the quality of your engagement with it. Every genuinely difficult skill you pursue is doing something structural to the networks involved. The musician who practices scales for 10,000 hours is not just memorizing sequences. The mathematician who works at the edge of current understanding is not just accumulating formulas. The sculptor who spends years learning to see form in 3 dimensions is not just training their hands. Each of them is building, in the brain, a more sophisticated instrument for engaging with that specific dimension of reality. And neuroscience shows that this process, this deepening specialization in response to sustained practice and curiosity, is available to every brain. Not because everyone has a savant hidden beneath the surface, but because every brain is a more extraordinary instrument than ordinary experience allows us to see. Return one final time to the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, 2 hands reaching toward each other across painted sky. For centuries we looked at that gap and imagined it as the boundary between what a human mind could do and what lay beyond it. The ceiling, the chapel, the extraordinary vision that produced it, and these seemed to belong to a different category of mind than the one most people carried. But what savant syndrome has quietly revealed to neuroscience is something that reshapes that interpretation. The gap between an ordinary mind and an extraordinary one may not be the gap between what different brains contain. It may be the gap between what different brains choose to make visible, between what the mind filters away in the name of efficiency and what it allows through. What Michelangelo made visible on that ceiling required 4 years of extraordinary sustained attention. What Derek Amato made visible at a piano keyboard required a blow to the head, 2 entirely different paths. But both arrived at the same place, not because they possessed a different kind of humanity, but because their brains revealed possibilities that neuroscience is only beginning to understand, because something in each of them, circumstance, obsession, accident, will, moved the filter, shifted what the mind allowed through. And here is what that means for every person who has never experienced brain injury and never will. The greatest mystery is not that extraordinary minds exist, it is how much of every ordinary mind remains unexplored, not because those depths are inaccessible, but because most of us never receive, and never seek, the invitation to look. Every neuron remembers. Every thought changes you. Every choice rewrites you. The gap is still there. The spark is still crossing. So become.